face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu. Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Mark your calendars for the 11th Annual Family Fun Night at West Bloomfield High School. Stop by on Friday, September 16th at 5 p.m. for an evening of free, fun activities as we honor our military, police, and fire heroes. Plus, stick around to see Laker football take on Clarkston at 7 p.m. To find out more, scan the QR code on your screen or visit wbsd.org/community/family fun night.
I'm feeling good. Let's savor these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick. The virus will die. It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer. Because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine to keep safe and strong. Be happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine.
Let's whoop it up for these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the cheering going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Fire Prevention Week is just around the corner. Join volunteer, part-time, and on-call firefighters at this year's Fire Open House. Catch up on your fire safety knowledge with live demonstrations and hands-on activities. Chat with local businesses and resources about fire prevention, see some familiar faces, fight future fires, and make some new friends. The West Bloomfield Fire Open House, October 2nd from noon to 3 p.m. at Fire Station 1 on Orchard Lake Road.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu. Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Mark your calendars for the 11th Annual Family Fun Night at West Bloomfield High School. Stop by on Friday, September 16th at 5 p.m. for an evening of free, fun activities as we honor our military, police, and fire heroes. Plus, stick around to see Laker football take on Clarkston at 7 p.m. To find out more, scan the QR code on your screen or visit wbsd.org/community/family fun night.
I'm feeling good.
Let's savor these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. Today's edition of the Megacast begins now. Welcome to the Megacast, our live, local, 5 days a week TV, radio, and streaming show looking into all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Keith. Today, we'll be talking to a number of people about topics of interest and importance to Michiganders like you. Let's begin with what's making headlines today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page. Our top story comes from Paul Egan at the Detroit Free Press. U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is expected to announce $105 million in funding to convert I-375 in Detroit into a lower speed boulevard at a press conference with Governor Whitmer and Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan. The project is part of the U.S. Department of Transportation's Community Reconnection Program, which is aimed at reversing the discriminatory planning and execution of the interstate system, which has had imbalanced adverse effects on communities of color for a number of decades. The feds gave the state the okay to go forward with this project back in March of this year. And of course, Secretary Buttigieg and Governor Whitmer both going to be attending the North American International Auto Show in Detroit with the mayor, and we are also expecting to see President Biden at the auto show as well. Also making headlines today from Caitlin Luckoff at the Detroit News. After 2 years, Eastern Market After Dark returns tonight, and it is free to attend. At 6 p.m. and going until 11 p.m., up to 30,000 people are expected to venture down the Eastern Market for a night of fun, interacting with local creators and vendors, and enjoying a slew of entertainment. The event returns after being put on hiatus due to COVID-19. Again, that is a 6 to 11 p.m. event in Detroit. The address, 2934 Russell Street at Eastern Market. Finally, making headlines today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page from Mark Torregrossa at MLive. If you'll be in northern Michigan in the next few weeks, keep your eyes out for the northern lights. This time around of the year, around the fall equinox, is one of the optimal times to see the northern lights due to the angle of the Earth's axis. Delta College Planetarium Program Director and astronomer Mike Murray explained, saying, quote, "The orientation of Earth's axis is more perpendicular to the plane of its orbit during the equinoxes, which means our magnetic field is receptive to letting more charged particles in the solar wind enter our quote-unquote polar cusp. It's through the cusp that the particles enter our atmosphere and create the aurora borealis, or the northern lights, because the high energy particles excite molecules of oxygen and nitrogen in the air," and closed quote. So while you travel this fall, head up north and you might see the northern lights. Just another thing that will make northern Michigan a beautiful place to be. All those headlines on our website, CivicCenterTV.com, on our local news page, along with those helpful links to up-to-date and accurate information on COVID-19 from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the Oakland County Health Division. We have a great program ahead on this Thursday edition of the Megacast. Up next, we'll be talking mental health with the Birmingham Maple Clinic's Carrie Crawick. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Fire Prevention Week is just around the corner. Join volunteer, part-time, and on-call firefighters at this year's Fire Open House. Catch up on your fire safety knowledge with live demonstrations and hands-on activities. Chat with local businesses and resources about fire prevention, see some familiar faces, fight future fires, and make some new friends. The West Bloomfield Fire Open House, October 2nd from noon to 3 p.m. at Fire Station 1 on Orchard Lake Road.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu. Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Mark your calendars for the 11th annual Family Fun Night at West Bloomfield High School. Stop by on Friday, September 16th at 5 p.m. for an evening of free, fun activities as we honor our military, police, and fire heroes. Plus, stick around to see Laker football take on Clarkston at 7 p.m. To find out more, scan the QR code on your screen or visit wbsd.org/community/family fun night.
I'm feeling good.
Let's savor these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily 5 days per week TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. You can learn more about the program on our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast. We'll find more information on all of our partnering stations all across the Great Lakes state, including My Michigan TV. Joining us now on the Megacast is Carrie Crawick. She is the therapist at the Birmingham Maple Clinic, back with us once again on today's edition of the program. Carrie, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
Morning to you as well. So we're in the thick of the fall season, and coming up on the fall season. School is back in session, both at all levels, elementary, middle, high school, and even at the college level as well. And with this time of year, something that everyone loves to focus on as a little bit of an escape, but also an activity, is sports. But for our athletes, there are certain pressures that are put on them and struggles that they deal with that are unique from other people in the general population that aren't athletes playing in a competitive level where there is some level of scrutiny. So for you and for other professionals, what are some of those common issues that you see with athletes and what they go through being in the thick of competition, and sometimes the pressure and the attention that can come with that competition?
Absolutely. So in a lot of ways, youth sports is a wonderful activity when it comes to mental health. So in general, kids that are active in sports, a variety of different sports, have, better teamwork skills, some self-esteem benefits, some problem solving, and some resilience to going through hard things. What we're talking about here, the youth, young adults, and children who really suffer are the ones that have their entire identity wrapped around a specialized sport, right? That because in those sort of really highly competitive environments, the drive to be number one and perfect is there. And often those people are very fearful of being seen as weak or somehow imperfect, which can lead to anxiety and stress, or even fear of disclosing some of those mental health concerns. It also may put them at higher risk for sort of other mental health issues, such as extreme dieting, perhaps using substances to augment their performance, or using supplements that maybe we don't know much about. So there are sort of a variety of issues that can plague the student athletes that are in those really highly specialized positions.
And has the advent of social media, do you think that that's also played a factor in this? Because so many of these athletes, this is at the high school level, that's the highest level they're ever going to play ball. But for some that are looking at the next level, looking to get into college, D1, D2, D3, whatever it may be, and even those that are at a high level and know they're going to be playing at that next level, I would imagine that can add even more pressure because there's simply just more eyes on you.
Absolutely. And I think we saw this even with Simone Biles at the last Olympics, when she was having those difficulties with the twisties. And then, the world is weighing in their opinion about whether she's legit or whether it's fake or whatever it might be. That's just one whole level of pressure that's completely separate from her craft. And so I think that there's certainly burdens like that would affect athletes as well.
Joined by Carrie Crawick from the Birmingham Maple Clinic on today's edition of the Megacast. You can find more information at birminghammaple.org. That's birminghammaple.org for more information from the Birmingham Maple Clinic and to get in contact with them. My apologies, birminghammaple.com, not .org, it's .com. The phone number 248-646-6659, 248-646-6659 for more information. And what's different with athletes than some people in more of the general population is they are around so many people and they're around these different, especially in large team sports, you have that support system that's kind of built in. But that can also kind of be, while that's a great big group of people that are all working together, sometimes it can be tough to really confide in other people on that team about the situation that you're in. What suggestions do you have for athletes in that situation to address some of these issues they may be having, or at least talk it through with somebody that may be having some of those shared experiences themselves?
Sure, absolutely. I think you're totally right. On a team, you may have the feeling that the team is dependent on you, and then you don't want to let anybody down. And so then you're even forced to conceal more. And just like any injury, if you're concealing the injury, if you're concealing some sort of mental health injury, it will eventually come out in some other way. So, you do want to take the rest you need and the rehabilitation you need. I think that coaches and parents and adults can be very useful here to start the conversation to make sure that they can check their own anxieties. Like, yes, you may have to sit out from a certain event, or you may have to scale back on some practices to take care of yourself. And there may feel anxiety by those adults like, oh, this is going to really maybe change a once in a lifetime opportunity. But you need to be communicating to that person that while there are exciting opportunities and some of them maybe once in a lifetime, this is not just their life, right? Like, they are still humans, and we need to be, aware of their development, their age, and their humanity when we talk about the importance and relevance of whatever sport they're participating in.
Again, more information, you can get in contact with Birmingham Maple Clinic at birminghammaple.com, birminghammaple.com, 248-646-6659. We're joined by Carrie Crawick, a therapist at the Birmingham Maple Clinic. What advice do you have for coaches at all levels, particularly at the high school level and at the college level, where those pressures seem to be a little bit more intense in athletics than they are at some of the lower levels and the younger levels when these kids are really just learning the game? What advice do you have for coaches on what they can look out for and the steps that they can take either outwardly or just, kind of behind the scenes with their players, with their athletes to help them through these kinds of situations?
Certainly, I think, there's a huge drop off in youth sports. So by the time kids are 13, kids who are participating in sports regularly, there's just a nosedive by 13 where a lot of people leave. So I think that if coaches, of course, they're concerned about, creating the best possible team, in a competitive way, they might need to be considering retention. And one of the things that's really getting in the way from kids wanting to continue is the pressure, the stress involved, and the sense that if they can't be number one, then they're not relevant in that spot. And so I think that coaches can do more to probably to kind of highlight, right, like what all of the involvement that's important to being involved in sports, and use that as a part of the culture. Certainly being aware and kind of being aware, like you said, of what's going on social media. What are the conversations? What are the buzz? Not tuning a blind eye, but maybe having some sort of boots on the ground when it comes to what are the pressures when it's in substance use, are there suicide risks, extreme dieting. I think coaches can be really involved in kind of paying attention, just like parents can, and what's the culture of youth these days.
We're joined by Carrie Crawick from the Birmingham Maple Clinic on today's edition of the Megacast. Carrie, for those coaches and athletes alike, even parents that are involved in the broad scope of high school and collegiate athletics and even youth athletics that are looking at these issues. Some may say, well, we don't necessarily think that this is going to be important. It's not really affecting performance. It's not really affecting their bodies necessarily. Give us some insight on just how some of these mental health struggles can ultimately affect somebody's performance on the field, because for some, that might be a deciding factor in them speaking up or in those involved in these athletics on their team at the coaching level, at the parenting level, taking this issue seriously.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the worst case scenario absolutely would be just one suicide. So, I mean, I think that it is a possibility. It was only a few months ago, a very high level Stanford hockey player took her life in 2022, and whom was seen at the highest of her career at a very prestigious university, and the pressures of managing both academics and performance on the ice rink were just too much. And so I think that the potential to save one life should always be a motivator. In the most extreme sense. But yeah, I want to circle back to your question, but I'm sure, yeah, there would be other things to be aware of too, like if you need a rest, if you need an off day, to allow for that, just like any other injury, and that preventing burnout would be because the risk to the team is that a person just quits the sport altogether, so to offer that as offering time as a way to stay and come back replenished and rejuvenated would be a goal.
Going back to what we touched on earlier, the role that social media can play in some of these pressures, especially for athletes today, given the circumstances, particularly at the college level and the pro level with name, image, and likeness licensing, and all these different deals they can have, and really even beyond that, at the most broad, basic level, the interaction that these players at all these different levels, including at the high school level, can have with fans, both their own and those from other teams, that can also have a huge impact on somebody's mental health, because very often sports fans are nasty with each other, let alone with these players. And that doesn't really discriminate between youth athletics, teen athletics, and collegiate and pro athletics. What advice do you have for athletes, particularly those at some of the higher levels, college and maybe even emerging into the pros or semi-pros, that are dealing with some of these pressures and this noise from social media, which for them, is part of building a brand for themselves, an identity for themselves, and getting to those levels, but also can be quite toxic in their life?
Absolutely. And I mean, I think, right, too, is even coaching people along the way, children as they're getting involved, some heckling, like you're saying, or even the sort of razzing that goes on between players. Part of it is part of the sport. When you're an adult and if you're familiar, you may see these guys, act this way. I'm a fan of MMA. So you see these guys act this way in the press conferences and they're mouthing off during the fight. But after it's over, they shake hands. And if you've seen them out and about, they're enjoying dinner with their families together, so it's like their friends, their coworkers, their colleagues. Part of that is part of the theater of sports and not necessarily real. So it's important, though, too, to be able to make that distinction. And youth at every age, or people who do suffer from depression or anxiety, might not be able to discern those things, what is real and what is not, or that there's a boundary there. So certainly offering that education to people, that it's not necessarily real.
Even if an athlete maybe isn't suffering from any of these sort of mental health ailments that are pretty common with athletes and even those in the general population, what benefit can they take from speaking with a therapist or another mental health professional in the process of them playing these sports and developing into these sports?
Sure. I mean, talk therapy is incredibly useful when it comes to treating depression and anxiety, especially for people who feel like maybe they cannot go to the people that are yet the closest to them in their lives. It offers a space that's unbiased, non-judgmental, and really has no connection or influence on those other people, or influenced by those other people. So a therapy can be a private and safe place to talk about these things. And in some ways, a healthful way to compartmentalize, that you can sort of unload your burdens in that space and then go back and refocus on your whatever discipline your sport is.
And it's another way too to just kind of talk through the situations you're going through, some of the struggles you're having in your development and your strategy and in your consideration of your games coming up, getting some of those anxieties out before you go into the process of those competitions can also be incredibly helpful. Carrie, any other advice for athletes, for parents, for coaches of athletes in terms of mental health on their teams before we let you go today?
I think especially for students and student athletes who seem highly successful, there can be a misunderstanding that like, how could this person be depressed? They've got everything going for them. You know, they're at peak performance physically, they're doing well academically. The assumption is there's no way to be unhappy because look at everything that's going well. And I think to that answer is for people to understand depression isn't being sad when everything is sad. That's just being sad. Depression is being sad when everything is going well and still feeling bad about it. And that is when you really need to kind of plug in and get some treatment, ask hard questions like you and I talked a week or two ago. You know, ask someone forthright, do they feel like hurting or harming themselves? Like, have they lost in some way their will to live? Even if they seem, like I said, even if they seem super physically and mentally on top of it, you know, just ask the question in a bold way and your answer will help lead you to the kind of treatment that's needed.
Carrie, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
BirminghamMaple.com is their website. Again, BirminghamMaple.com. You can call them 248-646-6659. 248-646-6659. We'll take a break. On the other side, we'll continue to talk about sports. We'll preview some upcoming games this week, Friday in high school football, talk about the season at large. And of course, we are the home for West Bloomfield Lakers football. We'll talk about the Lakers' upcoming rivalry game tomorrow night, family fun night in West Bloomfield against the Clarkston Wolves with Detroit Free Press columnist Mick McCabe coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick. The virus will die. It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer. Because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine to keep safe and strong. Be like happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine.
Let's whoop it up for these moments. Made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the cheering going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Fire Prevention Week is just around the corner. Join volunteer, part-time, and on-call firefighters at this year's Fire Open House. Catch up on your fire safety knowledge with live demonstrations and hands-on activities. Chat with local businesses and resources about fire prevention, see some familiar faces, fight future fires, and make some new friends. The West Bloomfield Fire Open House, October 2nd from noon to 3 p.m. at Fire Station 1 on Orchard Lake Road.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily 5 days per week TV, radio, and streaming show about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Keefe. You can learn more about the program, civiccentertv.com/Megacast, where you'll find information on all of our partnering stations all across the Great Lakes state, including My Michigan TV, and find all of our full shows and individual interviews on demand. Joining us now is a sports writer for the Detroit Free Press, Mick McCabe, who covers high school sports all across the Great Lakes state. Mick, thanks for joining us.
Sure, it's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you with us. We're in the thick of the high school football season here in the Detroit area, and plenty of really powerful teams this year. Some that are coming back and have been powerhouses before, and some that have kind of warmed back up. In particular, your number one ranked team, Warren De La Salle, looking very different this year than they maybe have the last couple of years, and really coming back to that top of the state, powerful kind of gameplay that has been so typical of De La Salle in the past. What is different with this team this year that's really setting them apart from the field and has them ranked number one in your rankings?
Well, they won the state championship last year, and they have almost everybody back. And the year before that, they lost in the finals to Mona Shores. So they've been on the verge of this for some time. And they have tremendous skill position kids. A quarterback is tremendous. A defensive end is just outstanding, a dominant type player. And they're really good.
Also on this list, of course, is Belleville. Belleville last year finally crossing the plane and winning that title against Rochester Adams. And for Coach Crowell and his team, having such a talented quarterback and a young quarterback too, and coming back with a really strong team, how much of a competitor do you believe Belleville will be in Division I? How tough do you think it is going to be for those other teams down the line competing in D1 to dethrone Belleville at the top of the hill?
It'll be very difficult. It won't be impossible. West Bloomfield, for one, could definitely give them an excellent game. But I've got them ranked number one for a reason, which means I think they're going to win a state championship. So anything less would be a disappointment.
We're joined by Mick McCabe. He is the columnist at the Detroit Free Press covering high school sports with us today on the Megacast, freep.com, to read his articles and more. Let's talk about those West Bloomfield Lakers. We're, of course, are the home for West Bloomfield Laker football here. Our coverage of the Lakers and Clarkston on TV, radio, and streaming on Friday night begins about 6 p.m. with This Week in Laker Football, followed by the pregame show about 6:30, and kickoff is at 7 o'clock, civiccentertv.com/Lakers Sports. Mick, this Lakers team has been playing some pretty great football so far this season. Particularly, I look at week one, where we've typically in the past for these Lakers seen a slew of mistakes, particularly in the arena of discipline, pre-snap penalties, frustration penalties, and that kind of creeped up in week two. But this West Bloomfield team is really kind of looking back to be at a normal level that we saw of gameplay back in even the championship year and the runner-up year of 2017. What's different, in your opinion, about this West Bloomfield team this year than has been in past years that makes them so dangerous and potentially one of those teams that could compete with Belleville?
Well, I think that they've got some standout players and some dominating type players. They can dominate their position, and they're dangerous and speed kills, and they're very, very quick. And that is very difficult for most high school teams to contend with is speed like West Bloomfield has.
Yeah, my biggest question with West Bloomfield is going to be when you really have that dominant defense going up against you that can compete at the first level, but also has those lockdown corners and safeties. What are they going to be able to do to open up that offense then as you get later on in the season? That test could come this week against Clarkston. They're having a very good season so far. One loss in week one, a 7-point loss to Davison at the Big House. But other than that, last week, that's a pretty impressive showing against Rochester Adams at 45-35 victory for Coach Pinter in his first season. Is Clarkston football back?
Pretty close. They've got a terrific running back in Ethan Clark. And boy, he just chews up the yardage. And Cole Dollinger might be the best offensive lineman in the state. We had him ranked the number 2 player overall. And he's really terrific. So they can move the ball on the ground. But Mike Hine, who's starting for his first year at quarterback after being a receiver and a defensive back last year, he's been a very pleasant surprise. It hasn't taken him long at all to readapt to that quarterback position he was back early in the sophomore year before he got brought up to varsity.
Yeah, he's been having a great season. Had a really nice game last week against Rochester Adams, over 200 yards passing, 100 yards also on the ground. It helps when you have weapons out there like Ethan Clark that also had a great game in the receiving game. Also, Cole Jarvis had a nice game on both ends of the ball, the offense and defense. This is going to be a very competitive matchup on Friday night. Looking at this matchup from both sides of these teams, West Bloomfield and Clarkston on Friday night, given that it's in West Bloomfield, the way both these teams have been playing, the strength of their schedule so far this year, Mick, which of these teams do you believe has the edge on Friday night here in the OAA Red?
I think West Bloomfield will win, and it really has nothing to do with being at West Bloomfield. I think home field advantage in high school is almost non-existent. In the NFL, it's like 3 points or something like that. It's not like they're flying someplace and spending the night in a hotel and stuff like that. No, it's the same field. I mean, they went to Rochester Adams and won decisively last week. I think West Bloomfield has a little bit too much speed for Clarkston. I think that'll be a real problem for the Wolves.
Now, I think that game's also going to come down to the matchups in the trenches too. You mentioned one of the best offensive linemen, if not the best offensive lineman in the state, in Dellinger for Clarkston, headed to Michigan State next fall, and then on the West Bloomfield side, Amir Herring headed to Michigan.
He's terrific. He's really good.
Oh, he is. He's excellent.
Yeah, it's going to be almost always won the trenches. I mean, if you can't block, you're not going to win. And if you can't get some kind of push defensively, you're not going to win either. So it helps to have dominating linemen for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge factor. Dellinger's play and the other O-lineman for Clarkston, their play on Friday night against the West Bloomfield team that loves to attack in the backfield, but also has some really talented linebackers who are excellent in coverage as well, like Kari Jackson and Rock Harris.
Very much so.
We're joined by Mick McCabe from the Detroit Free Press. He's their high school sports writer and contributor, joining us today on the Megacast. You can read his articles at freep.com. That's freep.com to read his articles from all across high school football. As you look across the state and across the divisions, who so far have been some of your surprises in terms of their performance this season?
Well, I don't know if it's a surprise to me because I had them ranked real high early, in the preseason, but Caledonia is not a team that anybody in Division I is familiar with because they've been Division II for a long time. But they're talented. Their backfield is excellent. Their quarterback is terrific. They're a team, and they run a different kind of offense a little bit. They're a team that I think will give people headaches in the state playoffs. The same with Granville. They play that tight T that Canton has played forever. And Zeeland West has played for a long time. And if they get a lead on you, it's really difficult to play them. Now, if you can get up on them, that's a lot better because with the way they play, that tight T, they don't throw very much. So they have to come back on the ground. That's difficult to do if you're behind. Lapeer is a team that was good early on after the merger and then kind of slid back a little bit. Well, they're really good again this year. So they're a team in Division I that people have to worry about.
We're joined by Mick McCabe on today's edition of the Megacast. You can read all of his articles on high school sports at the Detroit Free Press, or you can visit him online, freep.com, for more information and to read his articles and others on high school sports right here in the state of Michigan. Mick, before we let you go, you wrote an article recently about a friend of yours that you had worked with at the Detroit Free Press, someone that you've known for a very long time who recently passed away. Can you tell us more about this article and about the man that it's all about?
Gene Guidi, terrific guy. I grew up 2 blocks from him. And he used to come over and play hang out with the 2 older, there were 4 boys across the street. 2 of them probably about 6, 7 years older than us. And then he had 2 younger brothers who were born one day after me. And, we knew Gene because he hung out with those guys. And one time they were playing wiffle ball in the backyard. And we were being little idiots and ran through their game. And I accidentally stepped on the wiffle ball and crushed it. And Gene picked up the bat and chased me all the way home, swinging at my head. Thank God I had some quickness back then, so I survived. And then my first day as a copy boy, on June 3rd, 1970, I walk in, and the very first person I see is Gene Guidi. And I was making sure there were no bats in the office because he would have finished the job. We became very, very good friends. He left after a couple months, went up and ran Action Line, which was exclusive to the Free Press back then. And then when our horse racing writer left to go to some other paper, Gene came down from Action Line and was our horse guy because he loved the horses. And then he also went and when the horse racing, it didn't call for someone to be at the track every day. So he came in and they put him on the Tigers with Bill McGraw in 1984, which was a pretty good year to be on the Tigers. Yeah, but he also did college basketball. He could cover anything. He was a pro's pro.
Well, Mick, thank you for telling us more about Gene. Of course, you can read Mick's article on Gene Guidi by visiting freep.com, going to the sports section, and the article is entitled "Former Detroit Free Press Sports Writer Gene Guidi Dies at 79." Mick, thank you so much for joining us today.
Always a pleasure.
Appreciate it. More information, again, you can read his articles, freep.com. Just go to their sports section and navigate to their high school sports section to learn more about high school football and follow all the teams across the Great Lakes State this year, along with Mick McCabe. We'll take a break here on the Megacast. When we come back, the North American International Auto Show is back in downtown Detroit, and it's also partially outside. It's in a beautiful time of the year, great weather for this year's auto show. What are all the things you can do outside of the auto show in Detroit? We'll talk to an individual next on all that on the Megacast.
Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Mark your calendars for the 11th annual Family Fun Night at West Bloomfield High School. Stop by on Friday, September 16th at 5 p.m. for an evening of free, fun activities as we honor our military, police, and fire heroes. Plus, stick around to see Laker football take on Clarkston at 7 p.m. To find out more, scan the QR code on your screen or visit wbsd.org/community/family fun night.
I'm feeling good.
Let's savor these moments. Made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe, welcoming you back to our 5 days per week TV, radio, and streaming show about all things Michigan. You can learn more about the program and keep up to date on all of our shows at civiccentertv.com/Megacast, where you'll find links to all of our partnering stations all across the Great Lakes State on TV, on radio, and on the web, including My Michigan TV. Joining us now on the Megacast is Chris Moyer. He's the Senior Director of Communications for Visit Detroit. And man, it is a great time to go downtown and enjoy the city of Detroit, especially now that we have the triumphant return of the North American International Auto Show. Chris, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, it is a pleasure to be here, and it is truly great. It's always a great time to be in Detroit, but right now is a really great time to be in Detroit as the North American International Detroit Auto Show returns after 3.5 years. So I'm coming to you almost adjacent to the auto show. I was having a little bit of bandwidth and had to run over to my office to do this interview, but the floor is buzzing today, and everybody's going to be able to get to go see what's going on at the auto show starting this Saturday.
Yeah, the big news with this year's auto show, that was the big news with the next auto show 3.5 years ago, is that it's going to be in the fall. It's going to be partially outside. So what is going to be different in terms of layout and activities for this edition of the North American International Auto Show that's been different from the winter version that's been tradition for so long?
Well, the big difference is exactly what you said. This is not just taking place in Huntington Place. It is all over downtown Detroit, from Hart Plaza up to Campus Marshes, over to Beacon Park. There are activations throughout the city. And because it is a beautiful 75 degrees in Detroit right now, it's really fun to walk around, go explore, go to a restaurant, go to a bar, maybe take the Q line up to the DIA or the Charles H. Wright Museum or the Detroit Historical Society, the Michigan Science Center. Getting out and about in Detroit while you're down here for the auto show is going to make this a very special and unique experience from the history of the auto show.
I asked this recently of another Michigan travel expert, just how big of a time is it to have this in the fall for those other businesses in the local area? I mean, we know that in the past, this has been a reason why many people have flocked to the city of Detroit. They've done it in the middle of winter, but they're here to see the cars, and then it's kind of ugly outside. It's cold. It's windy. They just want to go home or back to their hotels or back to the airport and get out of here. Having this in fall, that's got to be a huge mode of excitement for the businesses nearby Huntington Place and really all throughout Detroit.
That's it. You hit the nail on the head. This is a great move from the Detroit Area Dealer Association and the North American International Auto Show. Rod Alberts, who leads the DADA, had this vision of how the auto show can make an even bigger impact on the city, on the wider region and community. And by moving it to the fall, we're highlighting Detroit, we're highlighting Southeast Michigan at its very best. There's always great things to do, and there's great parts of the community, even in January and February in those cold winter months. But let's be honest, we look our best and we are our best right now in this beautiful month of September.
And we get outside and we have encouragement after seeing all those cars and having so much fun at the auto show. You want to go about, grab something to eat, grab a drink with some friends or some family, or just do something else, continue the fun. And you might as well do that right there in Detroit. For you, knowing what's going on in Detroit, you got the pulse on the city and all the fun down there, Chris. What are some of those other fun events or fun happenings that people can engage with this weekend if they're down at the North American International Auto Show or throughout its run?
Well, I think this Sunday is going to be a really big day for the city of Detroit. We have the second Lions game happening of the season. Obviously, it was a close call. We almost were able to pull it out against Philadelphia, but this week against Washington, there's excitement about the Lions and where this potential team is, the direction this potential team's headed. Obviously, the Tigers are still playing, and there's some good young players on the Tigers. So there's fun things to do when it comes to our fantastic Detroit sports teams. Certainly, as I mentioned, there are a lot of great exhibitions up at the Detroit Institute of Arts. Going to Eastern Market is always an exciting thing to do because you get to experience art, culture, and fantastic food all in one location. So there's a lot to do in the city. I should also mention, really, while you're at Huntington Place, you go out to Hart Plaza and get on the Detroit Riverfront. 2 years in a row, the Detroit Riverfront has been voted the best riverfront in the United States by the readers of the USA Today. So this is the opportunity to go see some really exciting, innovative cars, some flying vehicles, and then go get outside and experience all that Detroit has to offer.
We're joined by Chris Moyer. He's the Senior Director of Communications for Visit Detroit, joining us on today's edition of the Megacast. If you're going to be in Detroit this weekend for the North American International Auto Show or not, and you're going to be in the Detroit area in the near future, visitdetroit.com is your first stop. Visitdetroit.com, plan your trip to Detroit, figure out some of the fun that you can engage in the city, and learn more information. Visitdetroit.com is the website for all that. Chris, going back to the North American International Auto Show, given that it's been 3.5 years, it's tough to believe it's really been that long since the last auto show. Given that there's been that much time off, it is coming back. There is so much excitement around it being in the city in the fall with the nice weather outside, especially with the forecast for this upcoming weekend. What, in terms of the planning and the execution of this event, was then put into overdrive, so to speak, to make this an even bigger splash this year, being it's the comeback year for the auto show?
I think that you were spot on. The recognition that after 3.5 years, people develop new habits. People don't always, they'll want to have new experiences. And so Rod Alberts and the team at the DADA and the North American International Auto Show recognized how critical this particular year was to reestablish the brand, to reposition the auto show as this global experience for mobility innovation. And so when you come down to the auto show this weekend, next weekend, what you're going to see is the future of mobility. It's not just about the vehicle on the road. It's about electrification, autonomous vehicles, flying vehicles, and data, artificial intelligence that will support a true mobility ecosystem. You get to do some pretty fun things as well. I can't stress enough the opportunity to go to Camp Jeep or Bronco Mountain and drive in a car. You're going up at a 40-degree angle on Bronco Mountain, and you come down. And fortunately, there are really strong professional drivers doing this, but it looks like they are going so fast down this mountain. All of this is taking place indoors at Huntington Place. So you get world-class experiences as though you were on a roller coaster at Cedar Point, and you get to experience the future today.
And this is a really interesting time to attend the auto show too, because as you said, electrification, autonomous vehicles, flying vehicles, just the innovation that we've missed seeing on display right in front of us, and maybe we haven't been reading about over the last 3.5 years. It really is an interesting time for the automotive industry in Detroit. Again, the North American International Auto Show beginning this weekend at Huntington Place, formerly known as the TCF Center, formerly known as Cobo Hall in downtown Detroit. And Chris, Grand Rapids is known as Beer City, USA,
Yes.
But don't look now. Here comes Detroit. You got the Detroit Brew Trail that's also going on. Tell us about that event and how people can participate.
Well, this is an event that somebody can participate in all year round, and you don't have to do it all in one day. In fact, there are so many fantastic breweries and distilleries throughout Southeast Michigan, in Oakland County, Macomb County, Wayne County, and the city of Detroit, that it would probably be a little unsafe to do all of them in one day. But what we recognized at Visit Detroit was the fantastic legacy and history of brewing and distilling in Detroit and Southeast Michigan. We are so proud to have great beer cities like Grand Rapids, like Kalamazoo, just a couple hours away. But Michigan is truly one of the best beer states, in the whole country. I've had the chance to live in Colorado in my life. They often make that claim that they're the best beer state. I can tell you, pound for pound, Michigan is the place to be. And Southeast Michigan has more breweries and distilleries than any other part of the state. And the quality, the innovation of and creativity with how brewers are creating craft beers, appealing to different tastes. Get on the visitdetroit.com website, as you mentioned, sign up for the beer trail, and you can earn badges and ribbons by visiting different breweries around Southeast Michigan. And then get valuable prizes for doing it.
Again, that website, visitdetroit.com for more information on the Detroit Brew Trail. It's right there on the front page. You can also learn more about the auto show and everything else happening in Detroit now and in the future. Again, visitdetroit.com is the website. Chris, we know about the auto show, the Brew Trail, some of the other fun happening in Detroit right now. But what's coming up? What should people be keeping an eye out for in the near future of other fun coming to the city?
I'm so excited about this. There are two things. One, the Motown Museum just reopened last month after a couple of years of renovation. They now are in the process of a $55 million expansion. So getting back to the Motown Museum, if you've been before or going for the first time, you're going to be able to experience the incredible rich history of what really was the sound of the 20th century. Motown has this cultural resonance that still lasts today. And probably the best part of that tour, as you go through Motown, you can go stand on the soundstage at Studio A, where Stevie Wonder, where Marvin Gaye, where the Jackson 5 and Aretha Franklin, the Temptations, and so many other amazing artists recorded their number one hits. And you can you will be able to sing and harmonize on that soundstage. So that's a pretty special experience. Number two, starting in October and running through January, Detroit is going to be hosting the first traveling exhibition of Van Gogh paintings in more than a decade here in the United States. And so we are going to have some of those, just an incredible collection of those paintings at the Detroit Institute of Arts. This is the chance, if you can't get over to the Louvre or the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, this is the chance to see some incredible Van Gogh works in person, and it's the actual painting. I know many people are familiar with the immersive experience that's been touring the United States and has come to Detroit. You will get to see the painting itself, and the DIA is doing a fantastic job curating this exhibition.
Well, Chris, we appreciate you joining us. Anything else for us today before we let you go?
Now, it's always a great time to visit Southeast Michigan, and do come down to the auto show because you will see the future of mobility right now.
Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Visit Detroit.com for more information on everything happening in the city of Detroit. And of course, for auto show information and tickets, that is NAIAS.com, North American International Auto Show, NAIAS.com. I'll do it one more time. NAIAS.com for auto show information. That is going to do it for this Thursday edition of the Megacast. I want to thank everybody that joined us on today's edition of the program and encourage you to watch it all back on civiccentertv.com/Megacast. If you're just tuning in, you missed some of our show today because you're in the middle of your busy day as well, or you just want to relive the fun of today's edition of the Megacast. civiccentertv.com/Megacast. We have information on our partnering stations all across the Great Lakes state, as well as on-demand full episodes and individual interviews from all of our shows dating all the way back to March of 2020. Big thank you to everybody that joined us, and as well to our crew, Jared Clark and Calvin Brown at Master Control at My Michigan TV, and of course, the king of television himself, Larry Nyland, our producer for each and every one of these shows. That does it for today's Megacast. We'll return on Friday with a new episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live.
Welcome